So the hall has really helped me develop my sound. I know some people have different circumstances in different halls, and a lot of people's sounds develop in their hall. A hall has a lot to do the way someone's sound develop. I think we don't talk about that much, but a hall can really help develop someone's sound as well.
Right. I know when the Kansas City Symphony got their new hall, the reed players had to make some major adjustments to get used to it. It's a beautiful hall, but it was so different from their dry hall that they had before. And it really has a lot to do with how we craft our reeds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Big time. Big time.
So you juggle a lot of plates with your role as principal oboist at the Nashville Symphony and now your professorship at CCM. But you have a lot of other special projects that you're doing as well. You're a visionary, as evidenced by your projects, advocating for works of Black artists. Can you talk to us about some of your endeavors, past and present?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I do. I do wear many hats, even about, Nashville and Cincinnati. People, how do you do that? What do you do? Do you fly? Do you drive? Do you this, that, and the other? I mean, one is only 4 hours away from Nashville, and then 2 is a very short flight. And then, so calm down, people. And then,
people are getting on Google Maps. How far is it?
How far is it? How are you doing this? Can I map this out for you? What's your schedule like? I mean, the thing of it, to be honest, just to talk about that, like, I have big kudos to my wife, Amanda. She's a doctor, and she worked, she was a new doctor right when, the pandemic hit. So, I mean, I saw her working 14, 16-hour days, sometimes 7 days a week.
Wow.
So, like, if I drove 4 hours and worked and taught 6 students, I'm only at 10 hours.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So, like, I just have a different viewpoint on, like, my grind. And I love to teach. And I if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, that's the example I knew. John Mack was so dedicated. Lane DeVos is so dedicated, and Gabe was so dedicated. Like, these people really have given all this time to help me grow as an artist, and all the other great teachers. I mean, from Frank Rosenwein to Jeff Rathman to Joe Robinson, Bob Arthur, all the people that Pedro Diaz, all the people I got to study with. I mean, these were busy people, and they still taught, so I just have that fire and drive. So there's no obstacle that's going to stop me from really giving my students what they need and also playing on the stage. And having multiple things going on doesn't mean that something needs to give way, because you have your schedule, you sit down, you put aside your time, you make your reads, you practice. And that's why I'm so regimented with my reads and stuff like that, because I do have a busy schedule. The other thing, as far as like other projects, like A Tale of Two Tales or My Lifted Voice, or even We Are Nashville, that got an Emmy for, and all the other things that I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All the other things that I do, working with Sphinx and other organizations when I'm speaking or advocating for Black composers. A big part of that with my, especially my Tale of Two Tales, I even taught a class on Black repertoire. And one of the semesters I specifically talked about Black repertoire as it pertains to American music. And that's been a big thing that I have been doing with some of my projects. I have a recording project that I'm now putting together that's announced on here that will be a bigger, robust, my first like full audio CD project, or whatever we call it these days, a streaming project with art that lives online. I really want to dive into what does it mean to be an American orchestra. That was one of the things that I wanted to question was, for people who are descendants of slaves in this country who have been here for 200 something years, before, and 100 something years before Emancipation Proclamation, there was a culture that was developed amongst that. People like Harry T. Burleigh took slave songs and work songs and turned those into concert songs. And then that influenced Dvorak, and because they were friends and they would play for each other and sing for each other every single Sunday. So like, I really want to dive into what does an American orchestra look like? Like, what is the cultural export outside of here? And that was what drove a lot of my passion projects to go just beyond, not just doing oboe, but also advocating for Black music and how that pertains to American culture. So if I were to hear an American orchestra, what is the canon that is unique to that orchestra? Like, if I'm looking in, Finland, I'm sure they're going to play a lot of Sibelius. If I'm looking at, different orchestras, or Viennese, I can't do the Viennese waltz better than, the Vienna Philharmonic does. I can learn, I can still play the same music, but that's a cultural export they give out to the world. And that's Say, I'm not saying that I resonate, of course, with lots of European music and Bach and Brahms and all this stuff, but are we just a European copy or karaoke band, or are we participating in other cultures and also having a cultural export that's unique to American playing? And a lot of that music resides within a lot of the Black American music and canon of, you thinking about Steele or Margaret Bunns or William Dawson or Nathaniel Dett or all these different composers that we have that's written, Undine Smith Moore, so many different composers that have written, and that has really driven my advocacy to say, what does this look like in the future, and what nuances from this music I could be teaching my students that they can grow and have new artistic expressions? Because when I learned Debussy, I learned a new expression, articulation, dynamic range, and colors. When I learned Bach, I learned a different sense of rhythm and harmony and melody shifting. So the same thing is going to come from these composers. The greats has given us this music. So we're only showing our own artistic expression and growth that could be uniquely grown here, that could be export to the world if we don't dive deep into the things that is already here that we should advocate for.
Bravo. That's just such important research that you're doing, and it's time. And I think definitely American orchestras need to be exploring the repertoire of Black composers so much more. It's time for a change, and thank you for doing that important work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that the music that we play is valuable. I think a Beethoven's Third is valuable. I think a Brahms one is valuable. I mean, that's a part of our canon. And a big part of it is it's not that I'm saying get rid of that canon. I'm saying that isn't the only canon that should exist. And it's called working in your forte, and you have those sounds all around you in popular American culture everywhere. So I'm saying you can work within your forte and really, really learn, because I was having a conversation with someone about the American oboe sound and things like that, and how it derived from a guy who actually immigrated here. So, it's even that is an interesting conversation within itself. So if we're talking about American orchestras, I just want it to be a broader spectrum of things so that we have more to export out to the world as well. Because, if I show up in Berlin Philharmonic's Hall, am I going to be able to play? I mean, yes, it'd be a different version of the music that they normally play. But, wouldn't it be unique if you had something that was unique from here? Then they say, oh, that's really cool. We want to play that repertoire as well. Mm-hmm. Can you show us how you do that? I mean, that's how cultural exchange happens. So I think that would be a beautiful thing that could happen to the grander scope of the musical community.
And the community will be richer as a result of,
absolutely,
integrating this music.
Thank you, Titus, for your leadership and your inspiration. I'm getting super excited sitting here listening to you talk about your research. I cannot wait for your new streaming project. Do you have a date? Do you have a tease for us?
I don't have a date yet. I can say that it will be an extension of The Tale of Two Tales. Ooh. It will be an extension of a broader, bigger thing. So this is just the beginning. A lot of people say, oh, you create all this video content, during the pandemic. But this is something I always wanted to do. This is something I've always visualized doing. And I come from a background of creatives. My family is full of creatives. So it's going to be an extension of that, and it's going to be really beautiful. And of course, the clothing is going to be. It's going to be a very beautiful project. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm practicing my tail off every day. To
pun intended.
I'm practicing. Absolute pun intended. I'm practicing my tails off, both of the tails.
I've watched it several times, and I'm just super excited about that movie and the rest of your research and your next streaming. And thank you so much for being with us today. It's just a true honor and pleasure, Titus.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Talking to you both.
It's been a joy. Thanks to all of you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode.
We'd love to hear from you. Send your read-making questions for our guests to readtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Sending good vibes from our read desk to yours. I'm Courtney Miller.
And I'm Margaret Marco.